Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sanghang namasami. Dear friends, this morning I proposed two different images for the equanimity, especially as we could experience it in meditation. The image of the mountain, or being as solid and firm as a mountain, unshakable like that. And then the image of space, which cannot be disturbed because it can't receive any kind of mark or any kind of stain. And then this afternoon we spoke some about developing serenity in meditation and some of the approaches to the meditation practice which are helping to incline the mind towards serenity and stillness, and that quiet state of mind which can have the quality of neutrality, neutral feeling, can create a space for the arising of equanimity. I wanted to talk some this evening about some of the insight aspects, or some of the wisdom aspects, in the way that the to the extent that we begin to cultivate some more profound wisdom along the lines that the Buddha taught, to that extent we experience more and more equanimity in our life, until equanimity becomes something like a real power for us. So where to begin? The three marks: reflections, contemplation, investigation, which leads us to understand impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self in phenomena, is definitely a mainstay of this practice. And you can see so many different kinds of teachings in the sutta that in one way or another are referring to this. I've had a question for some time about the contemplation of the five aggregates that make up the personality, or the perception of the self in an individual. That is form, feeling, perceptions, volitional formations, and consciousness. And then, on the other hand, very often you see side by side, or the meditation on the six sense bases, encouraging developing the awareness of the each one individually through investigation, through our own experience not simply learning a catechism or having some concept, but what can be the experimental part of this practice, to really investigate it, to understand the internal faculty of seeing, the eye faculty, and the corresponding kinds of objects that are matching for the eye faculty, and then the consciousness that arises based on that, and then the interdependency between consciousness and the activity of the senses, how when one falls, they both fall. And when they're both standing, they both are continuously sort of going around and reinforcing each other. And then from that, how Vedana, our feeling, the first initial experience arises, and that can trigger the whole proliferation of the different mental phenomenon based on craving. A very nice example of the instruction about the senses is given in one of my favorite suttas, the Exposition of the Elements, which is number 140 in the Middle Length Discourses. That sutta, the Buddha is proposing to teach the wanderer Pukasati about the elements. And in a certain way, I really feel that sutta is like a guided meditation. Instead of starting right in with the elements, first he teaches about the six senses. And why is that? I believe it's because that's the Buddhist way of making Pukasati to be very well grounded in the present moment, to wake up the awareness of the process of the mind and body, the process of perception, the process of our experience. And then having gotten tuned into that, having sort of like sharpened up that awareness, then he comes to describe the meditation on the elements, which is given in a little bit more a certain way. I won't say it's a catechism, but it's given in a bit more of a theoretical way, saying like when you're thinking of the earth element, you're thinking of the earthy parts of the body, like head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, skin, and so on down that list. And then thinking externally of things that are earthy. And so if you're thinking of earthy things outside, that's definitely almost like going beyond what can be known directly through our direct experience, but something that's known inferentially. That we've gotten to a level of almost conceptual thinking, to think that the tiles of this floor have this earthy quality, which is similar to the earthy quality of the tiles of our fingernails. But that further reflection is protected from going off in space into being purely speculation, because the first step of the meditation was to get grounded in the six senses. In another way, all of the meditations that we do that are focused on the senses, six senses, and going up to Vedana and the arising of craving, this is developing the direct experiential knowledge of dependent origination or of causation. And the knowledge of causation, that seeing the real nature of things, leads directly to being disillusioned or disenchanted, and to being able to transcend or go beyond being reactive to the different kinds of Vedana that arise. I think I can find a quotation in a sutta that has something about that. This is the Indriya Bhavana Sutta. It's 152 in the Middle Length Discourses. By the way, I'm not sure, do you know that the last 10 suttas in the Middle Length Discourses are the greatest set of discourses that can be taken as really powerful guided meditations that are really, really speaking very directly about how to do insight meditation. We see, everybody knows about the Satipatthana Sutta and some other suttas as being like the main guideline for how to do meditation. But these suttas towards from the Dattavibhanga right up to the end, there's sutta after sutta after sutta that's very rich in how to practice with meditation. So in the Indriya Bhavana Sutta, the Buddha says, a mendicant, this is an ordinary trainee, somebody who's not accomplished something yet. When they see a sight with their eyes, liking, disliking, and both liking and disliking come up in them, they understand liking, disliking, and both have come up in me. This is conditioned, coarse, and dependently originated. But on the other hand, this is peaceful and sublime, namely equanimity. Then the liking, disliking, and both liking and disliking that came up in him cease, and equanimity can be stabilized. Okay, this is a practice. We can all do this practice. If we've developed anything at all in meditation, we can notice when like and dislike comes up in us. And we can see how really tedious it is, especially at taking a longer meditation, like a daylong or a longer meditation retreat, if the mind is trapped in a cycle of liking and disliking, and you get so just tired of yourself when the mind is going into that rut. But then if one can draw the mind away from that and can call up or recall the quality of equanimity and be able to arouse the quality of equanimity, then standing on that understanding about what equanimity is and of this peaceful, sublime quality, then standing on that, you can pull yourself out of like and dislike. The sutta goes on and talks about someone who's a practicing trainee. This will be a person who has at least gotten to stream entry, a person who's had a glimpse of Nibbana. and they see the sight with their eyes and so forth, and the liking, disliking, and both come up in them again. And then this trainee who's had the glimpse of Nibbana, who's had the opening of the Dhamma eye, they are instantaneously horrified, repelled, and disgusted by the way the mind keeps going into like and dislike. And based on that, this gives them the kind of mindfulness which is like a hot frying pan, that the drop of water that you sprinkle on the pan immediately is evaporated into steam. And so the same way, once the Dhamma is opened, then one would no longer have like delusion about like and dislike. You would no longer think that it's fun to dislike something, or that it's fun to like something and say, oh, you know, I'm feeling tired. I'm tired of being mindful. Let me just go for some pleasure, to have a rest from mindfulness. That would be a deluded way of thinking. But once the Dhamma eye is open, you wouldn't think that way anymore. And so the delusion doesn't come up, and the mindfulness is there constantly, and like and dislike is quickly dispelled. And then the last one in this example is a noble one with developed faculties, and that's referring to an enlightened person. Or someone who's further along on the path of awakening. When they see a sight with their eyes, like, dislike, and both still come up. And then, if they wish, they say, may I meditate perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. In other words, experiencing something which is dukkha, one could see that it's, or something that's painful. One could see that that's a perfect manifestation or culmination of all the previous karmas that have come to this point of having a human body and experiencing pain in the body, and say, well, yes, I have the karma, all the causes and conditions going back through however many lives and eons led me to take this human birth and to have this kind of body, which is subject to pain. And I'm still alive, and I'm still subject to Vedana, which is inherently not that pleasant. But there's something in it that's not repulsive, because, well, this is part of nature. You see the truth. When you see it truthfully the way it is, okay, the truth is not repulsive. And then they can say, may I meditate perceiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive. So when something really tasty comes along, and when the students offer a lot of acts of kindness and expressions of affection and respect, and that's like very pleasant. And then one who's developed could see the danger in that, say, oh, if I take delight in this, that could give rise to a clinging, and that would be detrimental. And so then seeing the danger, that's seeing the repulsive, and so on like that. And then they're able to go sort of like back and forth between among the different kinds of feeling that arise. They can, by moving among the different feeling states, back and forth, they develop a mastery of the kinds of feeling where they're no longer a puppet being controlled by their feelings, but instead they have feeling, but they have like a agency over the feeling, and so they're not a victim of the Vedana anymore. The Vedana is just something that happens. And then, having done this for a while, then they can say, may I meditate, saying equanimous, mindful, and aware, rejecting both the repulsive and the unrepulsive. And then they do that. There's another sutta that's sort of along the similar lines about the senses. Okay, well, it's a very similar in the same effect, but it's based on the five khandhas, the five aggregates. And someone who is an instructed noble disciple, but he's still alive, he's not obtained parinibbana yet. And she reflects, I'm now being devoured by form. In the past too, I was devoured by form. And the way I am now being devoured by present form, if I were to seek delight in future form, then in the future too, I shall be devoured by form. There's a different translation this is Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. Then Bhante Sujata's translation is, I am being itched by form. In the past, I was itched by form. And then if I seek delight in future form, then in the future I will also be itched by form. So it's this state of constant irritation. This is really, that's what dukkha is, isn't it? It's not just that the dukkha is the weeping and wailing, or the intense pain that just makes us want to get out of it, but it's also having this attitude of never being stable, because one always wants something different than what there is in reality in the present moment. So one is continuously falling into the future, trying to get more, trying to get something different, being like the monkey who can't let go of one branch without grasping onto the next branch. And so that kind of instability and constant becoming is, it's called the suffering of the round. And that's an aspect of it. So then, and likewise, he goes to this acknowledgement, like becoming disenchanted towards the five khandhas one by one and all together, by seeing how when there's grasping, one is being continuously oppressed, irritated, aggravated, thrown off balance, or devoured by these five aggregates. And the five aggregates are a summary of the totality of the ways that an individual experiences life, especially while holding on to the illusion of the self. So the operation of the khandhas is feeding and supporting, sustaining this delusion about the self. After that first reflection, in this sutta, they do the quiz about impermanence, regarding each one of the khandhas is form permanent or impermanent. Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is that which is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded as this is mine, this I am, this is myself? No, Venerable Sir. And so here we have an entire class of meditation. You could take a course in just meditating with that reflection. Or you could spend a week or a year or 5 years or 10 years just meditating and developing that reflection with whatever is arising for you, especially when you notice the dukkha and make the inquiry like, what am I clinging to? And then you can apply that quiz to it and see if that helps you to let go. Now, how does this come to equanimity? Well, that bhikkhu who does that reflection and develops that wisdom about impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self, they're called one who dismantles and does not build up, who abandons and does not cling, who scatters and does not amass, who extinguishes and does not kindle. So, and they said that regarding what? Regarding each one of the 5 aggregates, one by one and all together. So they dismantle the form by analyzing the form into its elements, or analyzing the form into moments. They abandon the form and they don't cling to form. They scatter the form. That's like the meditation on the parts of the body and the graveyard meditation, and you can mentally cause the body to become decomposed and eaten up by worms and just become like a bone here and a bone there, and eventually be changed into dust. So in doing that meditation, you cause your own form to be scattered and not massed up, and then to be extinguished and not kindled. So that's speaking about the trainee. By doing that exercise, this is leading to awakening, and we can see how equanimity is right in there as one of the fundamental characteristics of awakening. So when you develop that wisdom, you become disenchanted towards form, feeling, perceptions, volition, and so forth. You become this disenchanted, this nibbida, this disillusionment. So the magic is gone. You don't need it anymore. It kills the desire. Experiencing, but disenchantment is definitely based on insight. It's like you were in a magic show before, watching a movie and being taken in by the flickering lights of the movie and connecting to the whole story behind that, or being taken in on something that's sort of like a puppet show or something like that that's not real, that's just a representation, but you mistake the representation for the reality. But then doing this meditation, you become disenchanted and then become dispassionate. That's the gradual fading away of raga or passion, lust, or the fading away of the emotional reactivity. Through dispassion, the mind is liberated. That's the vimutti. We spoke earlier about the vimuttis, the kinds of liberation that we experience in tranquil meditation, in serene meditation, like in the Brahma Viharas, and there are other kinds. There's said to be like 8 kinds of vimutti that this is called the liberation experienced by the body. So then, having not conceptual, not intellectual, but a direct experience of freedom, of liberation. And with that, you might experience the way that all of the defilements, the asavas, are the inflow and the outflow, the different pollution, psychological pollution has all become disappeared. Birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, the work is done, there's no more to do. And then they say that noble one, he neither, before we said that the trainee dismantles and does not build up, abandons and does not cling, scatters and does not amass. But after the work is finished, then the noble disciple neither builds up nor dismantles, but abides having dismantled. Neither abandons nor clings, but abides having abandoned, who neither scatters nor amasses, but abides having scattered, who neither extinguishes nor kindles, but who abides having extinguished. And now this is coming back to our conversation this afternoon about the imperturbable states, or the aninja state. A person in a state like this who is just in the center, not going this way, not going that way, not going towards another birth, not going towards vibhava, or towards the cessation of becoming, or the annihilation of existence. And then they're just kind of like balanced perfectly in the middle. But it's not that they're balanced like a gyroscope or something is balanced because it's spinning, but then it's always in danger of falling over. But this is a balance like one who's floating in space, who can't be disturbed because you can't get any leverage. There's no leverage, so it can't be disturbed. Like an object in space. There's a meditation on the sense faculties. I'm tending now to see it being a bit more towards seeing dependent origination in the arising of craving, and that's the type of insight that comes from that. And then the cultivation of the investigation or meditation on the 5 aggregates is for a person who wants to really know and really face up to dukkha, to understand what dukkha really is. And then by penetrating into really understanding it, then you don't have to react to it anymore. It's just, it is what it is. So we can be in a position to observe the cessation of dukkha when we observe the cessation of these 5 aggregates. Because there's no more clinging left, because we've become disillusioned. We just don't want it, not interested anymore. I think this is really the essence of what I want to bring out. I know that the people in this room tonight and the people who are with us have been meditating for a long time, and you've read the suttas, and you've been exposed to different kinds of meditation. Taking this state of sublime equanimity, sublime peace, as a kind of the promise of this practice, and something that we can be like inclined to watch out for, to watch out during our living this life of mindfulness, kindness, and goodness, when those bright moments arise, when we have the experience of, oh, this is peaceful, this is sublime. We can have those wonderful moments, which don't have any clinging in them whatsoever, which are not delighting, which are not seeking after anything different, but are filled with contentment and appreciation for all the conditions that brought us up to where we are right now, but then don't have the desire to pick up or perpetuate anything new, anything different at all. And then in meditation, again, sometimes in a different way. In meditation, if we're successful, we will have the times that the meditation is stabilized and becomes very calm. And when we become, in a way, even like somewhat detached from our experiences, so that many different kinds of like phenomena could happen. Sometimes they say, like in meditation, a person is like sitting upright, but then like they have the perception that they're falling over, but actually they're upright, or they have a perception that their head is separating from their body and going up to the ceiling, or they have perception of lights, or many different kinds of unusual things that happen, and one is not either disturbed or impressed by anything at all that can come up in meditation. It's like everything that happens, whether it be those unusual or weird phenomena that can arise, or whether it could be like the ordinary, very also ordinary things that you're attempting to be in meditation and you realize that you've started thinking about the shopping list, and whatever it is, and nothing is a cause for disturbance, you can just say, oh, okay, I see that. I don't need to fabricate anything more about it. It's just, it is what it is. And one can be calm, at ease, not making anything out of it. And that state of ease is a kind of, I think, an inspiration for us to carry on with practice. And it can be a foothold that we can use to get out of a disturbed state. If we know what serenity is, or we know what equanimity is, if we had some experiences with it, if we can remember how we got there, and try practicing, like if you have a very equanimous meditation, remember what you did that led up to that meditation. What were you practicing? What were the conditions? Could it be that you were rested before you came to meditation? Could it be that you're not worried before you come to meditation, and that's why the meditation was calm? Or could it be because you undertook some particular kind of trick or approach in meditation, and that was successful? And whatever is supporting that experience of serenity, then try to do it again. Try doing it again and again, and see if you can develop that to the point that whenever you want to, you would be able to go back and get into that state. There is this quality of going back and forth. I already, I could mention in the exposition on the elements, one looks inside and then look outside. Look inside, look outside, look inside, look outside. And you keep doing that until the earth element inside your own body becomes just earth element. It becomes completely impersonal. So the delusion of the self goes away. Likewise, if you consider the refrain in the Satipatthana, this may be very familiar to many of you. After each one of the meditations given in the Satipatthana Sutta, the Foundations of Mindfulness, they say that one abides contemplating the body, or whatever the subject is, form, feeling, perception, form, feeling, mind, and dhammas. You abide contemplating it internally, abide contemplating externally, abide contemplating internally and externally, then contemplate arising, then contemplate cessation or dissolving, then contemplate both arising and dissolving. And so you do that exercise again and again and again until somehow the aspect of clinging and emotional reactivity breaks up. And when you experience that breakup of the reactivity that's coming from the false identification with these phenomenon, and you're just seeing the phenomenon for themselves, seeing them arising, dissolving, seeing inside, outside, just the same. Then when the end of that refrain is, there's mindfulness that there is a body, our mindfulness of the existence of that phenomenon is established in him, to the extent necessary for just knowledge and continuing mindfulness. And then one abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And so that independence and that non-clinging is another way of experiencing coming to equanimity. So this is the end of what I have to reflect on tonight, and I'm going to bring the YouTube recording to an end and leave some minutes for those who are on our Zoom session to ask their questions or to